and welcome to the May edition of Dr. Jasper. And today we're going to cover the AWS Quickstart guide offered by Jaspersoft. And here with us today to go over some more in-depth information and a little presentation and demo on that is Alexander Stojkic, who is from our engineering department. And I'm sure I butchered his last name pretty badly, but Alexander is here to help us today with the AWS Quickstart guide. And I'm just going to go ahead and let Alexander take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Jake. You were very close to pronouncing
about as close as I probably
the
could.
surname correctly. Yes. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here. So I will go ahead and share my screen and do a brief introduction actually to the session that we have today. Is my screen on air now?
Yes, we can see your screen. And Alexander, please feel free to go through the slides and then whatever you want to demo at whatever pace you see fit.
Yeah, okay. All right, let's get started then. I'll turn on the presentation mode. So yeah, I will talk today about AWS Quickstart and Jaspersoft deployment actually that we have there. I am Alexander Stojkic, and this is the Dr. Jasper presentation for everybody who joins. So let's go briefly through the agenda of today's introduction. So first we'll do an overview of the Quickstart portal, basically not the portal itself, but the offerings we have there. And I will try to squeeze in two ways to deploy Quickstart templates. One is completely automatic, and the second one a little bit more advanced. We will deploy the JasperReports Server using Quickstart templates with default configuration. Then we will log into JasperReports Server and make sure that it works after deployment. And you'll see how easy it is to do. And then we will do a deployment with customizations and custom S3 bucket for the Quickstart code. So let's take a look at Quickstart, how it actually works. Let's take a closer look at the architecture. So I have here a diagram from the right side. I hope you can see it well. So it represents the parts and pieces of the deployment. And first of all, I would like to say that it follows AWS best practices for security and availability. As you see, we cover here different availability zones, and everything is enclosed into a virtual private cloud. It also deploys automatic cluster setup into new and existing VPCs. So we'll take a look at that options today too, briefly, and one of them we will deploy. It has modularized template architecture. So all this architecture is split into several sub stacks, actually. There is a master stack and a separate stack for Bastion host, which is an entrance point to the whole system because it is situated in public subnet. And then in a separate, with the separate stack goes the RDS database and the JasperReports Server stack that encloses the instance. And actually the number of instances in case of cluster setup. Yeah, so I talked about this bits and pieces here already. So of course, more you can read on the portal and read through the documentation and read through the Quickstart guide. So let's get closer to the demo. And demo will include overview of the portal tool and the actual deployment. So it is as easy to find AWS Quickstart is you just type in Google AWS Quickstart, and most likely the first link that pops up will lead you to AWS Quickstart portal, and then you type TIBCO to find basically all the TIBCO offerings. So among them, you will definitely find JasperReports Server. So this is the one we need. So when the offering landing page opens, you will see this big yellow button here. It's good to start with this. It will open the deployment guide, and deployment guide speaks in very detailed in details about the setup, about the parameters, about architecture, about all the moving pieces in the setup, and also talks about licensing, also talks about the prerequisites that you will need for your successful setup. So the first tab that is here actually has the same diagram that I already showed, has some description of it, and has this link that will open GitHub repo, actually with the code for this for Quickstart. So you can download it, and if you need to modify it, you can do that. And in the last part of the session, I'll show you how you can actually use it and how you can deploy it your account, your environment. So this quick start is actually for developers, for IT professionals, for architects and other technical users who plan to implement or extend their deployment of Jasper Server on AWS. So if you're a technical user, this is the right way for you to start. I need to remind about the cost and licenses tab here. This is the place where you can actually get a free evaluation license for 30 days, because current setup goes with 14 days. And if you want to extend it, you can get a free evaluation license. Just subscribe to our forum on this tab. So now I think we're ready to go to the deployment tab, and it has all the steps that we need to take in order to successfully deploy our quick start. So the first one we already looked at. This is obtaining the license key, evaluation license, or if you are an existing user, you probably already have a production license for JasperReports Server. So this step includes both. So the second step is if you already have access to AWS console, so you need to log in. So you make sure that you're logged in and it doesn't redirect you back and forth when you try to do a deployment. It's good to do it before. Or if you're not signed up yet, you can sign up just clicking on this link and becoming a AWS member, customer, basically. The third step is to subscribe to JasperReports Server BYOL agreement, actually, which is located on the marketplace. You don't need to do an extra search here. It just brings you to this page, and you open this first offering, and what you need to do is just click continue to subscribe. So your account will have the subscription to BYOL offering. So this means bring your own license. And if we click continue to subscribe, you will see a message, you're subscribed to the software. So then you can continue. And now we are ready to take a look at the offerings that we have here. We have 4 offerings for class, 2 for cluster, 2 for single instance, and we can deploy into new VPC, new virtual private cloud, or an existing one if you already have a deployment. The same we can do with single instance. So for this demo, I will do a deployment with you for a new VPC and the cluster setup. And you will see how quick and easy it is to actually set up a cluster with Jaspersoft product on it. So at this point opens the create stack page. And this is a good time basically to pick your region. You can switch the region at this time, because if you do it later on, your changes that you made in the forms can be lost. So just switch your region here now, and you can basically go on because the template URL is already populated here. So the next step, it is the form where we fill up specific stack information. So for better recognition, I put my name in the like a suffix to the stack. I'll put 2, maybe I already created one. Now we have to populate some other parameters, specifically for network of configuration. So as our Quickstart is the multi-availability zone installation, so we need to pick more than one availability zones here. The rest of the configuration may stay as it is. If you don't already have other VPCs with similar or intersecting networks created, you can leave this set up these parameters here. Next, blank parameter is the allow Bastion external access address or range of addresses. So here you can specify who can connect actually to your system through Bastion host. And you can put a mask here, or as I do, I just go and copy my external IP address here, and I specify that only I can connect to this. Pick my key, and the rest of the parameters can stay. The Bastion can actually have the default parameters. So the server instance type, I recommend to put M5 because it's available across almost all the regions, all the new regions. It will definitely work for you. So you're safe to put this. Now, the initial number of nodes that we have here, I will put 1. I don't want to create immediately two nodes in my cluster. I want just 1 instance, but also we can leave this range, the maximum range, up to 4. And later on, we can change these parameters in the auto-scaling group. So the other things that are here, this is the license bucket that we can create. If you have one, pick no if you want to create a new license and customization S3 bucket. He will create it for you. I will also specify here my name and May 14th, just to distinguish those buckets. So the next database configuration, we also can pick an instance type. I'm gonna use the default one. And I'm gonna put for this installation a default username and password. Everybody knows this, Postgres, but don't worry, this instance will be removed after the demo. So this is just for the demo. For convenience, I will leave the database name default. You also can leave it default, but if you have multiple installations of JasperReports Server in your RDS, then it's recommended to change the name so you don't get into a situation when you have colliding names or your database will get rewritten. I'll pick include samples. Yeah, I want for my first installation to have samples to look at, and the rest I'll leave unchanged. So this is the AWS Quickstart specific configuration. It indicates that the project itself and the templates are sitting somewhere in AWS hosted S3 bucket. We'll also look at this setting later today and see how we can modify it and how we can use our own templates basically. So let's click next. On the next page, I usually select rollback on failure disabled, because if something happens, I don't want the whole stack to be reverted. I want to see where was the problem. So I'll leave this switch to disabled. And the next is just review. So if you need to make sure that you entered everything correctly, you can review the keys of the parameters and agree with all the acknowledgement for the resources usage that you're going to create. And we're going to click create stack. So as you see, this started creating the stack of the whole Quickstart package. And in a second, you see that the second nested stack is also on its way. So this will create like a cascade of stacks with all those bits and pieces of the deployment that we looked at earlier. The VPC stack, the Bastion, the workload, and RDS database. So in order not to wait for this deployment, I already created one before this presentation. So I'm gonna go there and gonna show you how it looks when it's deployed already. So here you have all the stacks created, and I go to the master stack and open the outputs tab. About this also you can read in Quickstart guide, Quickstart deployment guide. It also speaks about all these stacks, and it talks about the outputs tab, where you can find the auto-scaling group, all these parameters that are here. The customization bucket is important. This is the bucket where you can put your license and your customizations too. So let's take a look here now. The login and password are important for us so we can log in. So the login super user, it's a default user, like the master user to the system. And the password is the password we entered for our RDS, for our database. So when I click on this link, it opens a welcome page. On this welcome page, we have a couple of useful links that I also recommend you to visit. It will take you to support portal. It will, you can explore resources that you can use with JasperReports Server. If you can get some useful information in community forums and documentation and wiki pages. And you can also view a couple of videos that we have, so you can easily get started with Jaspersoft. Now I'm gonna click on login page, on login button here, which will take me to the actual login of the JasperReports server. So this is the login page for the cluster deployment. No matter how many nodes you have in your cluster, you will always enter through the login page, and the system will just distribute the load depending on the load of the system, basically. So this is the 750 deployment, and I'm gonna log in here with super user, Postgres, the database password. I'll try to log in, and you will see that it did not let me in. because the first time you need to change your password. So here the security starts, right? So I'm gonna enter it again, create my own password here now, so nobody knows it, and I was able to log in. You can leave this opt-in. We actually ask you to opt into Heartbeat so we can see the installation data we have, and you can start using the JasperReports server and take it from here. The home page basically also has a lot of useful links. The video tutorials are here, the popular resources links with documentation, so you won't get lost. You'll have this support package right here on your home page. And yeah, well, if we go to library, I'll just run a report with you so I can show you that JasperReports server works correctly. Yeah, so one of the sample reports, geographic results by segment report, is running, and we'll see it in a moment. Yeah, it's here. So let me show you one more thing in this deployment that might be useful for cluster setup. We just copy the auto-scaling group here, and we go to EC2, auto-scaling groups, and we will see that we actually can change those parameters there. And we can add more nodes to our cluster if we need to. So this is my deployment that I picked. Actually, this is another one, but I did the very same settings here. So let's say we want 3 instances instead of 1 to be in our cluster. We just save the settings, and AWS will automatically pick them up in just a couple of minutes. There's going to be 2 more instances here in the instances count of the cluster. So that's basically it for the part of the presentation, that how do we get started. As you see, get started is really easy. You just enter a couple of parameters on the form, and your cluster deployment is up with the whole network and the sample resources and everything you need to get started. So let's take a look now at a little bit more advanced way how we can do this setup. And I'll do the setup basically with deploying the single instance deployment into new VPC. So before I do that, we'll need to do some prep here. So I will go to the landing page, and I'll click on this source code. So I will need the source code of the Quickstart. And imagine you want to do your own deployment. You don't want to just follow the architecture that we offer from the box, but you want to change something. So of course you can download the whole project and modify your templates as you like. And I'm gonna download this this project here. I'm gonna unzip it, and we'll take a look what's inside of it. It contains some testing information here. It contains the templates, the RDS template, and all those new and existing infrastructure template deployments. It also contains folder submodules. So this Quickstart is using 2 of the standard submodules that are developed not by Jaspersoft, but are developed by AWS, and they distribute it. The Quickstart AWS VPC module and Quickstart Linux Bastion host module. So as you see, they're empty here because they are indeed references. They are not copied into our repository. So I'll need to just copy them from their corresponding repositories. So I have this. I have this archives here, which I'm going to rename. So they have the name that I need. And both those submodules actually are ready to be used. I'm going to remove these empty folders here and replace by the modules that I just downloaded. Okay, so I do have these modules now here. They're ready to go. And I will just rename this folder too. So I will explain a little bit later why did I rename these things. They just have to match certain names in the templates so we can use them. So now when we did this code prep, now of course this is really handy to modify. Now you can go to templates, to submodules if you like. You can make your changes, and with this project structure, you can deploy your own modification of Quickstart. Now let's take a look. How do we pair it up with and how do we proceed with the deployment actually? So we'll need to put all these things, all these files into S3 bucket. And in fact, I already did this before this presentation. So I copied the whole thing here. You can use the UI for this. You can use the AWS CLI to copy resources to your S3 buckets. It works the same, but you'll need the structure, Quickstart, TIBCO, Jaspersoft, and you'll see your templates here. All of them are uploaded. Now the second S3 bucket that we'll need, I called it a bucket for customizations, and I also already populated it with some information here, some files. So remember the license that we were talking about. It is really easy to apply your license to the Quickstart deployment, because all you need to do is just to put it into a root directory of the S3 bucket that you created or that was created for you by the stack. Now a little bit more interesting thing is going on with customizations, as the customizations will be completely copied over as the Tomcat application server file structure is. So as you know, the Tomcat has the following structure of folders: web apps folder, and then inside of it you have actual folders of the web applications. So our web application is called Jasper Server Pro. It's a professional edition, and already in this folder you can add other customizations you wish, but I picked just one file that I want to customize. I wanted to update the number of default data sources that I want to see in my deployment. And in this file, application context remote services, I enable those data sources. So I just put the whole file here, and once my deployment happens, this file will overwrite the file that I have in the default configuration. So with that, all this structure will be copied over and replaced in my deployment. So that's how it is easy to apply customizations, to apply the license. Well, now let's take a look at the actual deployment. I'll go back to our landing page and I'll select the single instance VPC. Hit open over here. Again, I'm gonna pick a different, I guess this one will be good. Pick the different region and we can go on here to the next page and again, enter and change the name of your stack so you can recognize what did you deploy there. This is a little bit easier configuration because this is a single instance. It doesn't have that many parameters. Let me enter my IP address here again. Pick my key. It also, single instance deployment also has the Bastion host, but it doesn't have the RDS stack because the database is at the same machine, at the same instance as the JasperReports Server deployment. So that's why it is a little easier. I'll also pick my favorite M5 instance type, and I will not create any S3 buckets. I will use my existing one. So here we need to specify the licenses and customization. And I guess I got it right, customizations, right? Yeah, AWS Cust. And this is the most interesting part. So you need to substitute the default. You'll need to substitute the default S3 bucket that was here with your own one if you want to use your own project that you just uploaded to your S3 bucket. That's how you make changes, you make modifications to the templates, and you can deploy your own structure and introduce the changes you like. So the second S3 bucket was called project. That's what I entered, proj here. And I also put the disable rollback setting. Have to agree with all the acknowledgements that we need to. The new resources will be created and the deployment have started. So that's, yeah, we will go back to our previous deployment. So that's how we created this new deployment with our customizations. And as you see, all these parameters will be here also. And the S3 bucket also that you created or the one that you specified can be found here. So just always reference to the output folder, to our outputs tab, and you will find all these necessary parameters. You will find the auto-scaling group and S3 bucket for the customizations that you need to do is also here. So that's basically concludes my introduction. I was happy to show you JasperReports Server and how we deployed it, how we deployed a single instance deployment with some customizations and fully automatic deployment of the cluster setup. And we can see that our JasperReports Server shows up usable, and we can go ahead and create our reports and create all the resources here. thank you everybody for your attention. I know that we will also have some questions here, right? So I think now this is time for that.
Yeah, so I'm going to give all the attendees here a minute or two to type in any questions that maybe they didn't type in, waiting for you to finish here. So we did have one question, but you answered it kind of during the presentation. It was kind of a point you just hadn't touched on yet, which you did with the last setup as far as deploying custom files or config changes, for example, application context files in your web INF if you have something with changed values. So you did demonstrate that as far as going into the web app folder itself and then providing those custom files. So that was the only open question that we have.
Yeah.
I'm going to give the attendees just another minute here. And then other than that, I think that covers it pretty well. Thank you, Alexander.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right, we've got one other question here. So the recording will be distributed after. So there is a little bit of downtime as far as the recording processing and being uploaded to our cloud. And then after that, the recording should be distributed. And if it's not, we do have a Dr. Jasper series that you can find on YouTube. Let me see if I can actually find that really quick for you. But the videos are all uploaded to our Dr. Jasper channel eventually. It may just be a day or two before that happens. All right. Let me just see here. But yes, that should be distributed. And if it's not, you can certainly follow up with us and be directed to the right location for that. But those should be available. And I believe that the attendees get an email after the fact as well.
Yeah, it just came to my mind for those very advanced users that want to go ahead, roll their sleeves and modify the templates. You can also try to modify one place in this template that would that can overwrite some some words, some like not big amount of information in context XML file, because with the approach I showed, you can rewrite the whole file. But if you want just to add a little bit of change to it, you can basically incorporate it in the template. So we can, you can continue, and by that time I can find this.
All right, perfect. And one of our attendees here was actually nice enough to share the YouTube that they were able to find. So I'm just going to put that in the chat there really quick for people. Please keep in mind it might be a couple of days before this session gets uploaded to that channel. Okay, and let's see here. I don't believe we have any other questions. So Alexander, and unless you have anything else here, I think that will conclude the session. I'm sorry, I didn't know if you're in the middle of showing a specific setting here.
That's
okay.
Yeah, that's okay. I just wanted to point to this sequence of actions that we enable cluster, pull the license, pull the customizations. So if you need to add some advanced steps and you really know what you're doing, you could modify this part of the template.
Okay,
and
very good.
Yeah, and probably an important thing is that these templates are dependent. So the main setup and configuration and the AMI IDs are actually in cluster existing infrastructure template, and the cluster new infrastructure is just using parts of existing. So there is a dependency here.
Okay.
For those who are advanced, this is probably a valuable information to know.
Very good. Good to know. Thank you. Okay, yeah. Well, thanks everyone for joining us this morning or whatever time it is, wherever you're at. We'll look forward to seeing everyone at our next session, which is always the second Thursday of every month. And big thanks to Alexander today for going over this AWS Quickstart guide. And everyone have a good rest of your day. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Jake. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.